Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar called Get Your Quality Program Out of the Rut and Back on Track. My name is Kristen Kern, and I am the Manager of Supply Chain and Sustainability Initiatives at the American Apparel and Footwear Association. Let's start today's program just with some quick background on AAFA, and then we'll move into our session. AAFA is the largest trade association in the U.S. representing apparel and footwear brands, retailers, wholesale companies, and the supplier community, all of whom produce and distribute product across global markets. AAFA focuses on three core areas critical to the business operations of our members: brand protection, supply chain, and manufacturing and trade. Under its mission of advocacy that fits, AAFA provides members with expertise across these disciplines, including personalized casework and educational programs, like today's webinar, to help members navigate the complex global marketplace. Members gain unparalleled access to resources, tools, and special interest committees that deliver exclusive insights on regulation, compliance, and policy, as well as networking and collaboration opportunities. As a reminder, AAFA is centralizing all of our coronavirus tools and information in our COVID-19 Resource Center, which can be found on our website. This page houses all of AAFA's tools on the current situation, tariff relief and stimulus measures, and meeting the demand for personal protective equipment. This includes a company preparedness checklist, a letter that AAFA and over 300 CEOs sent the Trump administration urging duty deferral, and resources on regulations, testing facilities, and certification requirements for making masks and gowns. As we get started, let me share two quick housekeeping notes with you. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those in the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will bring up those questions during the question and answer segment following the presentation. We are also recording today's webinar. It will be available for download along with the presentation deck on AAFA's Learning Center within 48 hours. If you experience any technical difficulties throughout, please contact GoToWebinar support at 1-800-263-6317. Today's program is sponsored by AAFA member Kima, and we have a great program planned, so let's get started. I'm delighted to introduce today's presenter, Terry Alano, who is the Senior Business Development Manager at Kima. Terry has a degree in textile engineering and over 29 years of experience in manufacturing, quality inspections, and factory audits, both throughout apparel companies and third-party service providers. Introduced to factory audits in 1996, Terry fell in love with the idea of reviewing the complexities of the manufacturing process while also verifying the safety, quality, and capabilities of the factory. This led to additional training and expansion of her internal audit scope to include social accountability and CTPAT audits. Terry estimates to have completed about 2,500 audits over a 20-year period across different industries, including soft lines, hard lines, food facilities, filling locations, and paper facilities and continues to perform audits as needed. Terry has used her experience to work in many arenas, including program development, customized audit programs, project management, consultation, training, sales, business development, and account management. The three key learning objectives that we'll cover today include best practices for product inspections and supplier audits, how to manage your supplier relations and keep subcontracting above board, and efficiency practices to optimize quality, costs, while improving quality in the long term. And with that, Terry, please begin.
Hello, thank you, Kristen and AAFA for having me here today. And I just want to say hi and thank you to all you guys for joining the webinar this afternoon. I'm hoping that, and Kristen, thank you for such a great introduction. I'm hoping to bring my lifetime of working experience that I have throughout all the industries and maybe shed a little insight on what your current program is doing and different ways that you can maybe enhance your program. I really and truly believe, on a personal note, that a quality program should be a living, free-flowing program. One cookie-cutter approach for everybody does not work, and you really need to base your quality program on what works with your company and what works with the way you do your business. So hoping that as we go through the slides today, we can share some insight with you on that. Okay. Oops. Okay. So Kristen just went through some of the learning objectives that were originally on the webinar description. And as you can see, we have added, as the first objective, we have added some information about COVID-19. And obviously, this is the topic of the day, every day for us. AAFA has been receiving hundreds of calls daily in regards to COVID-19, so we decided that we should maybe add a little bit into today's webinar. So I'm going to review that first in the first section, and then we'll go into the rest of the webinar as it was previously planned. Okay. Okay. So at KEMA, we have put some preventative measures in place for COVID-19, and I'm going to go through some of those with you. But before we start, I just want to say, along with all of you, I'm stressed. We are all stressed. This virus has gotten us all crazy. Most of us are working from home. Our routines are out the window. We have, working from home provides a whole array of new working conditions that we didn't have to deal with before. People at home have kids, spouses, pets. We're all stuck together. We're all getting cranky, and we just want this to be over with, right? So, but what I can tell you is this is a really scary virus. And for most of us, we have never, ever seen anything like this in our life. So we do want to present a little bit of information about it. I am not a COVID expert, but and as with all of you, I'm learning as we go along, and our company has done some research, so we can try to provide some information for you as well. Okay, so as a company, KEMA we're very concerned with the health and safety of our employees and how we interact with people outside of our organization. We've all seen companies in the news put measures into place for their internal teams, similar to what you have seen on similar to what you see on the screen and what we have done. So across the board, as a group, we've quarantined when needed. We've complied with the World Health Organization. We've enforced any of the global travel bans. Basically, we're grounded, as most of you are as well. We have also put extra measures in place for our field staff that include required PPE, but more importantly, we have trained our employees on how to properly use the PPE, the safe practices, so that both our employees and the factory employees that we come into contact with are protected in the best way we can. This virus changes on a daily basis. We try to keep up, and we're changing to be in compliance with all the restrictions and requirements and best practices that you hear about every day on the news. We just are trying to do our best to help prevent the spread of this virus as well. And I just wanted to do a call out that on the AAFA website, AAFA has a daily COVID-19 update call. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern time every day. And if you want to join and listen to what your fellow industry members are saying or discussing about COVID-19, go to their website. On the solution tab, go to events, scroll down, and then they have their little boxes down there for their event. And they're having you sign up for each day because the call-in information is changing. Okay, so I wanted to just point that out for you. And like Kristen said, this presentation will be available, so I'm not going to read the slides. So if you, I'm gonna just go through my notes as we go along. Okay. So what is sanitation and prevention? So as a company, we are getting so many inquiries from customers, from clients, because of the severity of the virus. Everyone wants to know how do they know if the factory is operating under the correct conditions to be in compliance with safetiness and cleanliness. And they want to make sure that the factories they're working with are not going to contaminate products they're making. So in conjunction with some direct requests from our clients, we have developed a sanitation and prevention audit. It's not something that we're advertising on our website, we just developed this as part of the outbreak situation and on request of some large clients. We do know that there are a lot of factories out there where the employees may not fully understand how their actions affect the overall health and safety of their coworkers, their fellow employees, and possibly their end product. So we developed this sanitation audit if you're really concerned, and it has a different focus than other audits that we have offered in the past. It does focus on hygiene, cleanliness, and the safety in the working areas and the communal space now, because now that's the big thing that we're seeing. You need to have enough space in between people. You can't cram too many people into an area because they're, again, with this virus, it's changing every day and it spreads so rapidly. So, so some of the benefits are listed above, and again, these are intended to validate that your factories are doing everything they can for good hygiene and working conditions of their employees. And at the end of the day, it's the employees that we want to make sure are, you know, working in optimal conditions. Okay, and here's some of the benefits that I listed here. Again, with the safe working conditions, in order to just make sure that the spread of the COVID-19 they're trying to minimize it with the actions and the processes that they've put into place. Okay, so on this slide, again, I wanted to put a little example for some of and it's just a little snippet from an audit, the audit checklist that we had put together. And I just wanted to show you some of the questions that we're going through during the audit process. And like I said before, this isn't an audit we're advertising, but if you do have interest in it and you have questions about it, please feel free to contact me after the audit and I will definitely provide you some more information about it. Okay. And finally, you know, every day you can't help it but to see more and more companies that are coming together for the better good of the country and really for the better of the world. Many of you on this call are working from home, if not all of you, and some of your companies, as we've seen, have changed what the products they usually manufacture to making masks and making gowns for the frontline workers. We saw in the news the other day that My Pillow guy, Mike, is now making masks. Car companies are making ventilators. So our norm is not our norm anymore. Our norm has been put aside, and your companies are maybe making products that are outside of what you normally do. We are all trying to do our part and help out, but with that said, we do need to make sure that the products that are being made are being manufactured with good quality, so they can protect those in the most need, so they can be distributed to those in the most in need. Excuse me. I'd hate to see, you know, a bunch of masks get into this country and people try to use them and the straps are coming off or the elastic is not being sewn on there properly. So that's what I'm talking about. KEMA is trying to step up and help out in this situation. As we're seeing everyone else do their part, we, as a company, our owners wanted to do what we do best, and that's inspections. So we are committed to offering a free inspection in China for masks and protective equipment and gear going to the medical staff. This is our way of trying to contribute in this fight. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if anyone has a need for this service, please reach out to me and I can explain more and we can get you set up. Okay. And with that said, we're gonna step into the guts of the webinar. And I hope I was able to provide you with a little bit more information about COVID. As much as I can. So we're going to start this webinar. As Kristen went through the objectives, we're going to go through the webinar and I want to show you some different options along your product cycle where you can make an impact in your quality program. Okay, there we go. So really and truly, this slide is one of my favorite slides in the whole wide world, and anytime I have a chance to discuss it, I do. This is, when you look at this, this is the life cycle of a product from concept to consumer, but I call it the circle of life in my world. Anyone that knows me knows I just absolutely love this slide, and I could actually do an entire presentation on this slide if anyone wants me to. Hint, hint. But anyway, I want to, I call it the circle of life. For me, as you see here, the risk management that you can put into your product start with the product concept, and as you go around the life cycle of the product, and you see all the things that your product touches and goes through from start to finish. You can see that there's so many ways where we can identify any potential hazards in your end product. From selecting, from when you start over here, from concept design review to selecting the right factory, for making sure the factory is capable of making your product. Any pre-production and production evaluation of the material and design through testing, product inspections, making sure your products are up to the quality standards. And it goes all the way to safe transportation and the distribution of your products, because if you can't get your products into your customers' hands, you're not going to have happy customers. So in the next few slides, we're going to review some of the different phases in a bit more detail and see if we can give you guys some additional information that you might not have thought about. Okay, excuse me. The importance of a properly trained team. So you can see we have listed here, three columns here for the different types of products, including food, hard lines, soft lines. But one of the most important elements of a good quality program is really and truly to have trained experts in your supply chain. At the end of the day, you certainly would not want an electrical inspector to be inspecting your apparel shipment if they weren't trained, and vice versa. You don't want to have a soft lines person or a soft lines manufacturer going into a food plant and giving them advice. So one of the most important things is to make sure everybody in your supply chain is trained properly and certified by your product line and by the client requirements if you are supplying products to a retailer. We as a company and along with the other service providers, we do train employees for specific product lines, and that's very important when you're to make sure that your service providers are training their employees by product line, so you're not getting, just like I said, a hard lines person doing soft lines, or food doing soft lines, or vice versa. So what I want to do is we're going to talk about some best practices for product inspection and supplier audits. Go. Okay. And again, yes, I'm bringing the Circle of Life slide back out at you. But this time, what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you where on the slide the most popular services that people tend to do on the slide. So as you can see up at the top of the slide, I've highlighted social audits. Social audits is one of the most popular audits in the social audit world. It's also known as ethical audits, and it's the audit that most retailers and most people come to us and want to do. This audit's used to validate ethical compliance of the factory, which means they want to make sure that the employees are being treated properly, they have clean and safe working and living conditions. And, you know, I say living conditions too, because in different parts of the world, a lot of factories also have dormitories for their employees, and that's part of the social audit process as well. You've probably heard of, we get a lot of questions, and you've probably heard of different types of audits, audit schemes out there that fall under this type of audit. So we have the SA 8000, we have SMETA, we have the BSCI, which is under AMFORI, the ETI, etc. Those are some of the most popular ones out there, and this is the type of audit that is most booked. And excuse me one second. Then you can see as you go to the bottom of the Circle of Life slide, I have squared out inspections. So we have pre-shipment inspections are definitely the most popular type of inspection. They're also known as final random. Some of you might call them fries. But the bottom line is when we go in to do a pre-shipment inspection, the quality of your production is at 100%. So where they're verifying the quality of the whole production lot before it leaves the factory. So when your production is at 100% complete and something fails, there's a little chance to make any correction to the product. So for me, this is a great inspection. You want to do this inspection because you don't want your products to leave the factory and leave the country and be en route to you if there is a problem with them. But on the next couple slides, I want to show you some alternative inspections and audits that you can do to help with improvements and maybe help enhance your quality program. Okay. So on this slide, I wanted to show you some different types of supplier audits that are out there. And I know you've heard of many of these. You know, like I said, at the top, we have the ethical audits. We go into the manufacturing, technical. We have some others listed here from structural to CTPAT. And really, at the end of the day, if these are the audits that are most popular, but at the end of the day, if you as a company have a different type of audit you want to do, I'm sure that an audit can be developed based on your requirements. But so, you know, right now, like we were talking about before, we're in crazy times. You know, we started the year off worrying about the tariffs and thinking that was going to be our biggest problems. And now we have the coronavirus. So since the beginning of the year, and since the virus started, you know, it has put a crippling halt to a lot of your businesses. And with the tariffs, a lot of you were contemplating moving your production to other countries, to outside of China, to maybe some other parts of the world where maybe they aren't as experienced as the China manufacturing body is. and maybe you're moving into factories that you've never used before. As discussed on the former slide, ethical audits are definitely the most popular to do, and as you can see, there are many different audits to choose from. But what I want to focus on for this webinar are a few options outside of that, and one is a manufacturing audit, and one is a technical audit. And both audits can be done when you are vetting new factories and maybe going outside of where you normally do your production. So I want to give you a little bit of information about manufacturing audits versus technical audits. And there's a lot of information here, and I'm going to just try to just focus on a little bit. But the difference between the two, a manufacturing audit is based on the ISO 9000 standards, and the technical audits are based on an ISO 9001 standard. And what that means is, so the ISO 9000 standard is a standard and an audit that describes the quality management system of a factory. And 9001 for the technical audit, it's the audit to determine if the documents that describe all these requirements are being done properly. Or it's a document that describes all of the requirements of your processes. Okay, both of these audits focus on the factory, not necessarily the employee like the ethical. They focus really on the manufacturing and the factory. Okay, and some of the other differences. So, we get asked, well, which audit is the best, audit that I should choose? I don't know. We're going outside of, we're going into different countries. We're not really sure. So, in my opinion, this is what I think some of the questions you need to ask yourself so you can determine what audit might best fit your needs. So, excuse me, for a manufacturing audit, we really focus on, can this factory make your product? Do they have quality management systems in place for the production? Do they have the capabilities to produce your product? If you are ordering for the first time products from this factory, can they physically make it from start to finish? Their process flow. Do they have equipment? Is your equipment in good condition to actually manufacture your product? And a technical audit, so we're going to go in there and we're going to see, with the technical audit, a lot of times you are going to a factory. You might have been recommended to go to them. You might have said, somebody might have said, hey, they make really good socks or they make really good boxes, and you might decide you want to use them. But what you need to know, the factory can produce your product, but now you need to know if they are actually following the same documented procedures every time in order to provide consistent quality. And that's what the difference is. With the technical audit, it really goes through, and you can see the bulleted list here, but it really goes through what you have in place and have documented, and are you actually following what you have documented? Because if you do that, you will be able to provide consistent quality and production every single time. Okay. And what I would say, especially if you're vetting factories outside of the country, if it was me, if I would choose a manufacturing audit, if you have never visited the factory, if you don't have a team that's been to the factory, maybe you've met them through another resource and you've had phone communication, video chats, but you have really never been to the factory, you have no visibility of what they've done. That might be when you would choose the manufacturing audit. You're right before you get started, see if they can make your product from start to finish. For a technical audit, like I said before, the factory, but maybe you're having some, or maybe it's a factory you're already using. Maybe you're having some quality problems. Maybe all of a sudden you're having products with problems with I don't know, say open seams. Say you're having problems with open seams or needle holes in your garment production, and this has been happening more frequently, and you're not sure what's happening. Maybe you want to do a technical audit and see what processes they have documented in place, and are they actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you're finding that your garments have needle holes, one of the things you might want to look at is their needle procedure. How often are they changing their needles out, and are they using the correct needles on the correct fabric type? So these are the kinds of things that we would get involved with and look at during a technical audit. Excuse me. Okay, so now we're going to get to inspections. So from the Circle of Life side, I mentioned that you can see here in the green, the pre-shipment inspection or final inspection is really one of the most popular inspections that most people do and most retailers are required their suppliers to do. But when you do the inspection at this stage, like I said before, the production is completed and is really difficult to make any quality corrections that are needed if you have somebody going in there and doing a final inspection. So one of the two of the other options I want to show you or talk to you about are in the blue, we have an initial product check, sometimes known as an IPC, and this is where so say you vetted a new factory and now they're going to start producing for the first time. So maybe you want to have a third party go in there and look at how they've set up their production, how they're starting their production on this product right at the beginning, right in the early stages, right from when they're setting machines, and then they are, day one starting their process. This could give you a lot of information about any corrections you need to make before they get any further into production. Say they need to adjust machines, or they're having issues with fabric bouncing, bouncing from, maybe they didn't cut it properly, maybe, all sorts of things can happen in the factory. So this is a great option, in my opinion, when you're using a brand new factory you've never used before. Another option is, as you can see in the yellow, is the Do Pro inspection, which stands for the during production inspection. And we like to go in, if we do one of these inspections, we like to go in when the production is around 20%. And I know it says here 20 to 80%. Some clients like us to go in at 50% and do a Do Pro and see what's happening, and just give them some feedback, and there's still time for the factory to make some changes or make some corrections. Both of these inspections are great complements to your quality program. I would definitely use these, like I said, with new factories or new product types. If you're going from, if your factory all of a sudden decides to go from doing soft lines to doing wovens, wow, this is, that requires different skill sets. So I would definitely want to jump in there at the beginning and make sure they know what they're doing right from the start, to make sure they're not going to get to the end of your production run and have all sorts of issues that can't be resolved. I do want to say, please, don't use an initial product check or don't use a Do Pro inspection and think that is your ticket to ship all your product at the end. I've seen too many times clients, they only want to book one inspection, and they book something at the beginning of production and they think, oh, everything's going to be fine. They ship it and it's not fine. It gets to the warehouse, they have issues, and then they want to know what happened. So please, if you only have the opportunity or the funds to do one inspection, continue to do your pre-shipment inspection, but I would recommend, if we can, add on an additional inspection for newer factories and new product types to add on for an enhancement, the Do Pro or the initial product check, okay? The other thing I wanted to mention about inspections is right now, and this is all related to COVID-19 as well, we are seeing a lot of orders for masks, gowns, the protective equipment, and they're large orders. We had inquiry about an order that was 1.5 to 2 million pieces of a mask that needed to ship into the country. So in my experience, in my opinion, when you have orders that are that large, you need to, and that's a really big chunk, what I would really recommend doing is to break it up into smaller amounts and do several inspections along the way with that many units, with large, I've seen this too many times with large orders, you're not waiting to the end to ship everything at once. You're usually shipping in stages. So use that as a way to do a few inspections to check yourself along the way. For instance, if you are following an ANSI or an AQL sample plan for 1 million units, and you're using the normal level 2 and a 2.5 AQL, if we went in and did just a final inspection or a pre-shipment inspection on 1 million units, we would only be looking at 500 pieces. And that's not very many for, you know, when you look at it compared to 1 million units. So like I said, I would split it up and maybe split it up into 4 inspections. For each of those 4 inspections, if we did the same AQL levels, we would be looking at 500 pieces each time, but at the end, we're looking at 2,000 pieces. So think about what you're doing, and you know, like I said, with some of these bigger lots, you might be better off adding a few inspections in along the way. And I would be happy if you have any questions after, or you have any concerns. If you want to contact me, please do. My information is at the end, and I can definitely talk it out with you and give you my best recommendations. Okay, now I got to move on because we're out of time here. So now we're going to get to how to manage your supplier relations and subcontracting. Okay. So, you know, we do supplier audit programs to ensure that the factories are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and to also ensure continuous improvement. So those of you that have been in the industry or have been around for a while know that subcontracting does happen. And now with all of the crazy variables that we've had this year, I can bet we're going to have a lot of subcontracting happening. So what I can tell you is really and truly the best thing you can do is partner with your vendors. You want transparency. You want to make sure you know what they're doing, what they're capable of doing, and you want them to be able to, you want to have a two-way relationship. You want to know what's going on so that you can set your factories up for success. So one thing I can tell you, and this is, one thing I tell you is early in my career, I went into a factory to conduct an audit. I knew the products that they were supposed to be making, and I knew the lot size of the, or the PO size that my client had ordered. And when I went into this factory, there was 3 people working at machines. And this factory was claiming that they were going to have a very high capacity of production for my client. And when I walked in and saw 3 people there, I mean, there was no way this was being done at this factory. So that was something that I alerted my client to, and they were able to start up the conversation with the factory, and they did, in fact, find out that, yes, you know, the factory wanted to take the order because they needed the order. They wanted to take it so that they could have, you know, make the money themselves. But in fact, they did need to use 3 different subcontractors. we were able to scramble and get the factories audited, and everything worked out in the end. But it was a lot of scrambling on in the middle of trying to get production done that was not necessary. And if the factory had been transparent, this wouldn't have happened. And again, talking about continuous improvement, it's important that as you move into unknown territory, it's really important to utilize the results from your audits, work towards continuous improvement. And again, I can't stress transparency. Make it clear to your vendors that you want to have a good relationship and a good partnership with them, and that you really want to work towards improving them. And the key up here is, if you see this little icon, partnership, not policing. You know, most factories are afraid to tell you something's wrong, or afraid to have an audit because they don't want you to drop them or leave them. And that's an important part of being a partner with them, is to help them improve, and you know, better improvement on their end gives better products and better improvement on your end. Okay, I have like 6 more minutes that I have to get through this. So efficiency practices, but to try to improve your quality in the long term. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through this. We know that the shortest distance, if you're doing a straight line, the shortest distance is from A to B, and the best way to achieve efficiency in your supply chain is to provide consistent practices. So consistency equals efficiency. So we already discussed the importance of partnering with your factories, and the importance of having good data to rely on, because you can't make decisions about your supply chain if you don't have results and data to refer to when you're trying to make these decisions. And so in the middle, we have the 2 icons. Audit is just the first step, and follow-up and continuous improvement. If you just do an audit and then that's it, no matter what type of audit you do, and you don't do follow-up, your factory is not going to improve or change anything they do. An audit is a snapshot in time, and as you know, no one likes change, right? We're all working from home right now, and we're all trying to develop some good habits ourselves, but nobody likes change. And the only way to make changes and improvements is to have repetitive actions or repetitive improvements. And the more you do that, they become a habit. And you've heard that before. And that's the same in your factories. So from my experience, I've seen many factories that, like I said, that want to delay audits. They feel they're not ready. They're afraid of failure. But really and truly, when a factory does not, you know, quote, quote, prep for your audit, you'll have the most accurate picture of how the factory operates. And this slide is just showing that the accurate data is the key to making informed decisions. And from that accurate data, you'll be able to implement changes and drive improvement along your supply chain. And that data really is what you're going to use to get better transparency, better quality products, and really and truly, you'll be able to make informed decisions based on the data and based on the information you get from doing these audits and inspections. And again, the key, sorry, for the last slide, is just really partnering and not policing. You know, build relationships with your factories. Some supplier best audit practices that I want to go through quickly. You know, in order to have continuous improvement with your factories, you first need to do follow-up to your audits. Like I said, if you do an audit and you don't follow up and try to make corrections and interventions, you are not going to, your factories are not going to improve. You're not going to have better products and better production. One of the ways to do that is through training, through supplier workshops, proper onboarding of your factories, and annual follow-up of your factories. Consistency can be achieved when you work with your factories towards the same goal. If you don't put your program guidelines in place with them, so meaning you don't put the rules in place, they don't know what you expect from them. So again, setting them up for success is part of your responsibility as well. As I said before, training is a big thing. Your training should go, you know, it's a triangle. The training has to first start with you as a company. You have to know what you expect from the people that are working on the program, and the guidelines and the quality processes and your quality guidelines you want to put in place are. And then you have to make sure that this rolls out to both your supply chain and to the service providers that are going to be doing the inspections and audits for you. Okay. And then the last bullet here, I'm sorry, I missed that one. I wanted to just say, you know, many companies, many of you do have programs where you have your own in-house QC teams that do inspections and audits for you, and then you supplement with third-party service providers. What's really important is that you are comparing your results from your factory self-inspections and audits with your inspection teams, and you use those results to compare what they're doing so that you can drive improvement and efficiency. If you're getting completely different results from two sets of two quality teams, then something's not working. Okay, a couple more slides, and so we're here on inspection best practices, and excuse me. You know, I'm a big believer in rewarding for good behavior. Factories that are engaged with their vendors tend to have better quality. And if they are consistent with their quality, then they should be rewarded, in my opinion. And again, I'm doing the whole work from home thing. We're all working from home. And those of you that have kids are probably doing this right now. You're probably telling your kids, you know, if you don't bother me while I'm on my call, then we'll do something special later on. So you're rewarding them for good behavior. And maybe you're not, but it's a very easy thing to do. But the factories want to be rewarded as well. The key is to always have, like I said, a complete picture of your factory so you can make better decisions on how to manage your budget. One way to manage some inspection costs are through a program called skip lot inspections. And any of you, it's a common practice, it's been a common practice in the apparel industry and with some other industries as well. And what this is it is a way to encourage your factory to always be engaged in their own quality, and then you are, quote, quote, rewarding them for good behavior. So, excuse me. So, a traditional skip lot programs are managed manually with Excel sheets. Suppliers tend to actually know which lots are going to be skipped. You might say every third lot, we're going to skip your inspections. So they know whether they're being inspected or not. Obviously, if they know they're being inspected, they are preparing a little better. These types of skip lot programs are a little, can lead to mistakes, a little more manual and not so random. So we have something that I wanted to show you that we have put into place, and it's an enhanced way of doing skip lots. And we call it, at Akima, we call it smart inspections. And with the smart inspection programs, it takes the skip lot a step further. So we use our internal system where we house all of the KPI information. We use our system, or our system uses its real-time data, the real-time data it collects, to automatically rank your suppliers, and will cancel customizable, will cancel inspections based on customizable percentages or at your choosing. But the difference is that our inspections get canceled the night before. So neither, and it's randomly done by an algorithm. So we don't know, and the factory doesn't know that they're not going to be inspected until the evening before. So what this does is, if you never know when you're not going to be inspected, it maintains a positive QC pressure on the suppliers and factories. Even if they are one of your A-list suppliers, if someone doesn't think if they're going to be watched or they're going to be checked, they can tend to slack a little. And what this program does is it allows, you as the client to determine the percentage of inspections in the end you want your factory to do. So you can put those requirements into this program, and we can randomly pick and choose, let the system pick and choose which inspections will take place. And in the end, it allows good suppliers to pay for about 10% of their shipments versus paying for a lot more. So I really like this plan. I think it has a great benefit to both you and your suppliers, and it really is, it's a really random way of doing a skip lot program. And in the end, it does save money, so it's very efficient on your budget. Okay. Whew. And I made it through to the end. So I just want to say thank you for attending this webinar. I wish you all good health and safety. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to me. I would be happy to go over any questions you have that aren't covered in this webinar. And I do want to apologize ahead of time if I was talking really fast. I was trying to get through this with the added COVID-19 slides that we put in. So thank you. I appreciate you staying on and attending the webinar. And Kristen, back to you.
Sorry. Thank you, Terry. We do actually have a couple minutes now for questions. So again, please, if you have any questions for Terry, just enter those in the question box in your control panel. We'll try to take as many questions as possible, but as Terry said, she can also respond offline to any unanswered questions after the webinar. First, Terry, something you touched on in your slides is subcontracting. When you're doing audits on those factories, do you need to perform an audit at the main factory as well as the subcontracted factory when you have that sort of setup?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, it's highly recommended. So it's highly recommended to do an audit at both facilities, because in the end, you just want to make sure both facilities are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're following the processes and the procedures that you have set up for your main factory. So, when we say, subcontracting used to be a bad word, and it's not. There are a lot of really great subcontractors out there, but we just need to make sure, or you guys need to make sure that you know what's happening in your entire supply chain, including your subcontractors. So yes, I would definitely make sure you get them audited as well.
Great, thank you. Sort of along those lines, just in general, how often do you recommend that companies be running these supplier audits? So, there's two ways to look at it. So some retailers will set up programs, and so we'll run them based on the frequency of the retailers. A lot of retailers want to do annual audits. Okay, I think that for me, I believe you should do annual audits as long as the factory has a good score. If we find any corrective actions that need to be addressed, I do recommend follow-up audits to the audit to make sure they're putting corrective action plans in place. And from that point on, then I would say you could follow up with an annual audit. Great, thank you. So one thing we talk about a lot with companies in their compliance plans is how different everybody's plans are. Can you kind of talk about what that looks like to develop training for factories, given how different some of the requirements from one brand to the next can be?
Yeah, another good question. Yeah, and yeah, brands. At the end of the day, everyone wants to make sure that the employee health and safety is being upheld in the factories, and they want to make sure their brand is not going to be tarnished by anything, right? So, but you know, in my lifetime, I've seen thousands of different variations of an ethical audit, because there are some companies that want to have a different focus, you know, want to go one direction, a little more heavily focused on one area of the factory versus another, and with different types of the manufacturing audits as well. We sometimes get different groups of questions that maybe a client has been burned with in the past, and so they want to add that into their program. So really and truly, we first start with their program, and we make enhancements, or we start with our audit tools if they're going to use us, and we make enhancements to it to work with their program. And then based on a final approval from them, we can set up training programs for both the factory and our team, our dedicated inspectors or auditors based on their program. So yeah, it's really, training is important. You know, if someone doesn't teach you how to do the right thing, you don't know what the right thing is. So number one, education and training.
Great, thank you. It looks like we're running up on the end of time here. So thank you again, Terry, for giving us this session, and to Kima for sponsoring the program. Again, just as a reminder, check out our COVID-19 resource page on aafaglobal.org/COVID-19. Additionally, several of these are sending out updates on information we're gathering on a daily basis on the COVID-19 developments. If you would like to join any of those committees, please contact membership at aafaglobal.org, and we'll also be sending out a weekly email update to members, with the next one scheduled to go out later this week. Again, as we close, just want to remind everyone that you will receive an email with links to the PDF and a recording of today's webinar. It will also be posted on the AAFA Learning Center on our website, along with recordings of all of our other archived webinars. So thank you again to Terry for this informative session, and thank you all for joining us today.